So, when I decided to put some of the music from my rediscovered tapes on this YouTube channel, I was talking to a friend about it and he said, why? Now, that's a very good question, and you might well be asking yourself that same question. But I didn't have to think about it, and I just automatically said, well, I think the pieces are quite good, and I think other people might enjoy them, so I'd like to share them. Now, no prizes for false modesty here. If you asked me if I liked the music that I wrote, I would have to say yes. I think most of it is good, and some of it is actually great. Now, I'm not saying these are the best pieces of music ever written, but when I listen to them, I like them. And I have to ask you the same question. Do you like all the music that you write? Now, you don't get any brownie points for being modest here. It's a genuine question. Now, I have done absolutely no research at all on this subject. There may be some academic paper about it. I don't know. If you know of anything, then please leave a link in the description, because I think it would be very interesting to find out. But I have a theory about this. I would go so far as to say, if you are a composer, I suspect that you probably do like all the music that you write. Now, you might like some more than others, but I suspect that you think most of it is at least good. And if that is the case, why should that be so? Well, I have a theory about that. Again, totally unscientific, but it's something I've been thinking about while I've been working on my Rediscovered Tapes project. Now, here's what I think happens. I think it is essentially a cultural influence, and it depends on the sort of music you have been exposed to throughout your life. Now, when I was a kid, and I was once upon a time, my friends would say, oh, I like this band, I like this singer. And they used to ask me which bands I liked and which singers I liked. Now, I was never actually really into bands as such. I was more into individual songs and tunes. Now, this phenomenon continues today, and people are great fans of particular bands and singers and songwriters and composers and musicians. And that's fine. However, the question I have to ask is, do you like everything that they produce? Now, this is actually not a question I have asked of anyone. You are the first, so I don't know the answer to that. But speaking personally, I can probably count on one hand, maybe two, the number of bands, singers, songwriters, artists and musicians whose output I actually like the majority of, 90–95%. I like dozens and dozens of other bands and singers and songwriters and composers, but I wouldn't say I like all their music. I like individual pieces. Now, you may think the same way, or perhaps not, but my theory is that all the music you've been exposed to has somehow filtered into your brain, and your brain has decided, yes, you like this, no, you don't like this so much. And as we are all individuals, even though we may listen to the same types of music, even the same music, our brains filter them and react to them in slightly different ways. So if you were, for example, to create a top 10 or top 20 list of your all-time favourite songs or tunes, I suspect that it would not be exactly the same as anyone else's. There may be similarities, but I would be surprised if they were exactly the same. Now, if anyone is working on a musicology degree, that might be a good idea for a thesis. So what I'm saying is, and this will probably come as absolutely no surprise, we are all individuals, and even though we may like the same genres or even the same pieces of music, we are still individual in how we react to them. Now, I will share with you the secret for writing a great piece of music. Yes, you get secrets in this channel as well. Now, it's not a massive secret. I've read this and heard it in several places, and it's fairly simple and obvious when you think about it. So you need to write something new, but it also needs to be familiar. Yes, that's disappointing secret, isn't it? Sorry about that. But that is actually the essence of what a good piece of music is, because you are writing a piece of music in a particular genre, so there is the familiarity, but you need to come up with something new which hasn't been done before, heard before, in order to make it a new and good and interesting piece of music. And therein lies the challenge. And what is even more challenging is the fact that everyone does not like the same music. But what a boring world it would be if we did. So let's carry this over to the compositional process. Now, there are lots of ways to create or write or come up with ideas for a piece of music. Now, probably one of the most common and the most popular, and the one I tend to use a lot, is just to sit down at your chosen instrument and play and see what comes out. So that's what I do as a keyboard player. I sit down and tinkle the ivories and see what comes out. You could use a guitar or a violin or a cello or a beatbox or a groove box if you're into making beats, but I think for a lot of people it's a very similar process. You basically improvise and hope, if the muse is with you on the day, that you will come up with something which is interesting. Now, what I think happens when you are doing this is that your brain is subconsciously filtering the results of your improvisation. So you'll play something and your brain will say no, play something else, no, play something else, no, no, maybe, no. And then with any luck you'll get a that's interesting, maybe I could do something with that, maybe I could develop that, maybe I could arrange that, yeah, that sounds quite good. So all this exposure you've had throughout your life to different types of music is being filtered by your brain, and it's looking for that new thing which it finds interesting and which you will think is good, if not great. This sort of begs the question, could you write, or do you write, pieces which you don't think are good? Well, yes, I certainly think you could. And sometimes when you listen to an album, if it's not by one of the handful of composers or musicians whose music you like 100%, you'll hear a song or two or several which you think are very average or very mediocre or poor. And when I hear something like that, I always wonder, did the composer think this was good? Now, at this point, I can only speak for myself, but that is my totally unscientific theory about why I like all the music that I write. After all, why would I write a piece of music that I didn't like? So I need to ask you the question, do you like all the music that you write? Is it all good? And do you occasionally come up with a piece which is great? I do hope so. So I hope that has at least given you some food for thought, and please do let me know what you think. As always, thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.